What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins. The boys are back in town, back together yet again after, a strange illness, a surprise visit from loved ones, insomnia, and deadline pushing. We are back together, bringing you all the action from England and Italy, Serie A in the Premier League. I'm your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom.
Hi, Matt. How's it going?
It's going great. Good evening. I really encourage you to check us out on YouTube so you can see Dom's outrageous fit for tonight's episode. What's crazy is like the kids today love those sunglasses. You look like it's somewhere between the Matrix and Squirtle Squad.
Squirtle Squad is exactly what I'm going for.
It is. Dom is in a great mood, which we'll get to later in the show. It has been, the weather's taken a nice turn for us too. So it kind of just feels nice in general.
A little color on the boy,
Yeah. That's what happens when you're outside for a few hours every day, right? You start to get a little color, and you got that olive skin, my brother. You got that.
Yes, sir.
No question at all that you are a Southern Italian man. If the tan didn't tell me, the hair does.
Calma.
Let's start in Italy, shall we? Because, not that the Italian season is not exciting, but you have weekends like this where, there's some like decent results, but largely speaking, there's no big shakeups. I think it's more just like we're looking at the end, who's going to finish in the top four. We already the title is very much settled in Italy, and even the bottom three is largely settled. Spezia might get pulled into the relegation fight, but really, it just feels like the stakes are not as high as they are maybe in the Premier League, right? Where so much is still left to be determined. It feels like in Italy, it's really the top four races what we're keeping our eyes on. Lazio took a big step this past weekend in, obviously qualifying for Champions League next year. They beat Juventus 2-1. And it's continued what has been a really strong season from Lazio. I think in some ways very quietly, because obviously they don't have the European success or the advance that they've had, that like both Milan clubs have had, of course, and Napoli currently. But even a team like Fiorentina, who are doing very well in their own endeavor, like. So they don't have those things. Even Roma, advancing deeper into the Europa League now. So I feel like they feel a little bit like just an underrepresented, under-discussed team, because I also think, we've seen this team before a little bit, and they've kind of disappointed in the past. There's not a ton of new faces at Lazio this season, but they're doing very well. The best defensive records in Serie A, and, look good on their way now to be qualifying for the Champions League, and that would be a huge step for them going into next season.
They have a lot of players right now that are playing out of their mind in great form. Sarri's got these guys playing really, really good football right now. Guys like Luis Alberto, who may not always be on the stat sheet, but he does well with build up play and linking up with his teammates, always finding the guy who ends up getting the assist. Zaccagni has been incredible for them. Leader in goals and second most assists on the team.
You always got a breakout year for him. Huge breakout. He
huge.
struggled a little bit at times last season, but this year he's really taken his game up a level.
That's good if you're a fan of the Italian national team too, because they're getting, I think that they've always been lacking kind of in that left wing department for a while. So it's nice for him internationally as well. He's definitely getting more looks. So, you also got to always mention Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. He's kind of their rock, right? Like
one of the standout players from Serie A. Yeah. Again, he very
always,
but he's just been, perennially now the last 3 or 4 years, especially, he's been one of the best midfielders in Serie A. And he has continued that claim this year. He's just a joy to watch.
Yeah.
and every season he's linked away from Lazio, and he just never seems to go. But yeah, I mean, again, defensively too, I think has been where they've had a lot of their bread and butter, which I think has gone a little under the radar. And they've only given up 7 goals away from home in 14 away games. That is, I mean,
That's incredible.
That is like that's insane stuff, frankly, to have kind of on your resume, your CV, and so I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. For Juventus, it's a little frustrating because they had obviously the opportunity to make up some ground on Atalanta and Inter who dropped points, and there was an opportunity for them to despite the fact that they had this 15-point deduction, potentially find their way back into Europe. It's still doable, but it's a little bit of a frustrating loss for them because they're trying to make up ground, at least get back into the Europa League, something like that. But
I
just
hope
absolutely
not,
praying
man.
on some downfall.
I want to see all of the memes. I want to be able to talk as much trash as possible on Twitter to Juventus fans. Yeah, for a decade of living in their elitist, Twitter spaces for the longest time, man. I think it's due time that a change of guard kind of happens.
Yeah, I mean it's not impossible. I think they're more likely than not probably to miss out on Europe this season. And if you kind of look at they're obviously still their best path, and we've talked about this, is probably just winning the Europa League. They obviously have a hard path through that because they have Sporting Club de Portugal in this round and have one of Real Betis or likely Manchester United in the next round. Nothing guaranteed, of course, though. But
I think it was funny. I saw somebody tweet, let's hope that Juventus show their Europa League DNA on Wednesday.
It's funny because the Juventus still have potential at Coppa Italia, right? I mean, they're a goal down in the tie, but they could certainly overturn something like that. It's not undoable for them. But they still got Napoli to play in the league, which doesn't mean as much for Napoli, of course, but does mean a lot for Juventus to again try and make up ground in terms of like big games left. Penultimate game of the season could be a crucial one potentially for both clubs in terms of where they might stand. Juventus Milan on May 28th. That could be a really, really important game for European placement next season. Milan, of course, sort of on the fringes right now of Champions League spots. It's not impossible that could very much be the same story in late May, and could really need a win out of that game to confirm potentially, right, like their place in the top 4. So a lot to play for still for Juventus and Lazio, all these teams in the top parts of Inter. Speaking of Roma win over the weekend and kind of take advantage. We talked about how there was like one team every week in the top 6 in Italy that was losing, and like they sort of fell in the standings. It sort of turned now into like 3 of the top 6 pretty much every week are losing or drawing. Inter have a late goal against them from Torino, which denies them some extra points. Roma leap over Milan now and have a more comfortable spot in the top 4. Nothing is comfortable at this stage of the season, but it's just something to keep an eye on, as we get into the last, really stretch of the season now where it's uninterrupted to, no more international breaks, anything like that. These are the storylines to watch, is just how exciting, it's exciting to watch. It's just, it doesn't have the same drama that maybe England provides us. I did want to fill our space with a little Italy talk with a little trivia. This was loaded up last week, and I was happy to see when I did a little homework that this still rang true, this piece of trivia. The best tackler by percentage won, by the amount of percentage that you've won your tackles in the SerieA this season is who, Dominic?
Can you tell me not specific position, but would it be a player?
It is a defender.
Like an actual defender?
It is a true
defender. It's not one of these statistics where like one forward has gotten enough tackles and he just happens to have like...
I did do this by I did do a minimum amount of tackles, so that it was like you're not getting defrauded here, and it's going to be like Kai Havertz is like, I think, one of the highest tacklers in the Premier League, and it's like you're never getting that. But this is a totally fair and reasonable trivia question.
Let me see a little something.
Uh-oh, he's cheating. He's cheating.
I'm not looking up. What I'm looking up are
He's got
team,
wall hacks. He's got
I'm
wall
looking
hacks.
up team rosters just because I have a feeling like what team I want to say. Can I ask another question?
You can absolutely ask another question, Dom. There are no rules.
How many lifelines do I have?
I don't know, 7.
Okay.
but I did not prepare lifelines as part of the bit. So
top 5 or bottom 5 team?
It is a top 5 team. In fact, it is a very top 5 team.
Okay. Kim and Jay.
Yes, sir. I think that second clause of that sentence really gave it away. Yeah, Kim and Jay with 81.8% tackles won is the tops in the Serie. That's incredible. Yeah, and it's not on a small amount either. And he's obviously just been a fantastic player. I mean, interestingly, today we're not going to get too ahead of the ship here, but is suspended for the next leg of the Champions League, which could be a huge miss for Napoli, of course. But yeah, he's been spectacular. We've talked so much about how there has to be a signing of the season not named Cavaradonna, right? Because he so obviously is the signing of the season. It's hilarious that the other probably high-profile candidate for that award is on his own team. And it's like, has also had, as good as Kvaratskhelia has been this season, Kim Min-jae has been equally as good on the defensive end. He's just been, when you talk about replacing Koulibaly, I mean, it's spectacular what he's done so far and how good he's looked.
It's a big credit to Napoli's scouting team. How they find players to bring in that are on their radar is just incredible. From these two guys too. I'm pretty sure Kim Min-jae was playing in the Korean league right before this.
He was in Turkey. He was in.
He was with Fenerbahce. That's right. Still, coming from Turkey, Kim Min-jae was one of the players of the season for the Super League last year too. So, Napoli picking and choosing the right players to come in and look, it's paid dividends for their season. You see, after what a few years of this kind of has done, the way that they've built this team together, there's not much else you can say about them. They really are so good. Totally deserve such this huge lead.
Yeah, for an extra bonus point, Dom, can you name the player that has the most tackles won? Not by percentage points, but just
total.
It is a midfield player. It is not a defender, as you usually get with these kind of things, right? Because usually a more defensive-minded number 6 might get you a lot of tackles won. This player is in the top 6. Yeah, he's in the top 6. He's a good old Italian boy. I'll say that about him.
A good old Italian boy. Top 6. So then they have to be on Atalanta, right? If you're saying top 6.
No, I just meant he's not on Atalanta. I will completely cut Atalanta out of that. I was just trying to remember the exact league table position.
Italian boy, you said?
He's Italian, but he has, I'm pretty sure this player has actually played for Atalanta. I believe he did have a loan spell at Atalanta at some point in his career.
Now you're giving the extra clues, the added facts that may make or break this guess. Nicola Barella?
Yeah, not a terrible guess. I don't know if Barella's ever been to Atalanta.
I don't think
it's Brian Cristante for Roma.
The former Milan boy as well.
Former Milan boy as well. I didn't know if that would give it away if that would make it too easy for you. He has won 48 tackles this season. That is the most in Serie A. Only a 62.7% tackle percentage. Not terrible,
Can we consider him a young player anymore?
No,
right?
I say he's a good old Italian boy. I didn't say he was a young.
Yeah.
Did I mention him being a young?
No,
stud? I don't think so.
No, it's just I guess
he's 28 now. So
yeah, he's kind of always been one of those players you kind of just know about.
He feels like he's on the young up and coming, and it's he's old, he's about to retire.
A Jesse Lingard type of view of him.
There's definitely something a little bit about that. Let's move to England, shall we, Don? Because this is where all the heat was this weekend. Liverpool 2, Arsenal 2. One of the most
Incredible.
exciting games I've watched all season. My heart was pounding, racing. I was barfing, peeing myself, crying in the late stages of this game. The last 15 minutes were electric. These two teams have always put on a pretty good show. Like over the years, have always had really like high flying matches and lots of goals scored. In obviously recent history, it's been like obviously a little more one sided. But just in general, I feel like it's usually pretty. At least there's always something to take away from a Liverpool Arsenal game. There's plenty to take out of this one. You know, Mohamed Salah missed penalty for the second time again. He missed one against Bournemouth a few weeks ago. You had Aaron Ramsdale just standing on his head at multiple times in this game and just performing breathtaking saves. You had a late potential penalty and then a late potential Konate goal and then a late potential, Martinelli and Saka on a 3v1 that just gets a little undercut. I mean, it was just so electric. It was a lot of fun. It obviously has big implications on the title charge now because Arsenal, I don't think going away to Liverpool and getting a draw is the worst thing. People will, I think, have forgotten this, but City went to Anfield and lost earlier this year. So, I mean, in a technical sense, they have actually gained a point on City's results. It doesn't feel that way, of course, but, they've matched and done even slightly better than City technically did in these same fixtures. So, it feels, I think, a little bit like Arsenal because they were 2-0 up in this game. And obviously, it's always going to feel like when you walk away from a game like that and it is a draw that you really miss this opportunity. I think they're actually very lucky that they didn't lose this game. Darwin Nunez, has had to kind of stop and start with his finishing this year if he has sort of a better hold on things, if he's in a little bit of better form, maybe. If Mohamed Salah, again, puts away a penalty. They had Liverpool had quite a few chances at the end, too. Like, there was a lot there that could have gone even worse for Arsenal, and I think we've seen them rebound very well, and I expect them to do that again going forward.
Yeah, Abe, can I say something?
You can absolutely say something, Tom.
Martinelli goal and an assist.
He's back.
It is,
and it's because I motivated him.
You know who else is back? Gabby Jesus is back.
Gabby Jesus is back.
I think that's good for
He's
Arsenal.
He's back to crying and just pouting.
Hey. It pisses off the other team and makes them do stupid things on the field.
It felt like it did the exact opposite for Arsenal, where it felt. I will say this. It did feel like the emotions got to Arsenal a little bit in this game. You had the Xhaka incident with Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I don't know that flipped anything in the game, but I do and Gabriel Jesus, I've noticed this just because he played for City for a long time, so he's someone that I've always kind of hated because I don't like his face, and he's one of those players that whines that I just know that I would hate to play against and play with in real life. He's just such a baby. Him and Bruno Fernandes, and it's. A lot of it has to do with that they're two big rivals, but they just throw their arms up all the time. They're always complaining, and it's just I hate that. It's just on a personal level. I just don't like it. He's a good player though. Don't get me wrong. He has talent. I'm not denying that. But then everyone's jerking off his no-look pass. That was not a no-look pass, by the way. He looked and then did the fake he actually did. He looked.
Ronaldinho did the same thing.
But Ronaldinho had the sauce. Jesus does not have the sauce. Okay? That's it. I don't want to be too biased. I just, I do feel like they lost a little bit of control here. And here's why this is important. Because I saw a tweet from a beautiful, beautiful summer child, an Arsenal fan, and I saw, I don't know if you've ever seen the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, but you've probably seen the meme where it's James Franco with the noose around his neck, looking to the guy that's also about to be hung. He's saying, first time. And that was what a Liverpool fan quote tweeted. This Arsenal fan saying, well, there's, City have 9 games left. There's no way they're going to win all 9. They were highlighting the fixtures. Brother, you have no fucking clue what ride you're on. You think you're on those little, those little haunted house rides at the carnival where it's it's a little scary and there's maybe a cool drop. You think you're on that? Motherfucker, you're on King Ka. You are going 700 feet in the air and you are coming back down and you are not prepared for this. Because I'm going to tell you this. They absolutely can and they absolutely will win their next 9 games. And it'll defy all logic. and you will lose the title, and you will hate it. You will hate every second of it.
Yeah.
I have lived this nightmare.
And look, the way the City's been playing right now, they're gaining so much momentum.
I just
Erling
want to
Haaland is doing
I just want to warn my
stupid
Arsenal
things.
brethren, because I want Arsenal to win the title. I think that they played so well this year. They've been so consistent. Young team. There's just a lot to like there. I love Saka. He's a great player to watch. A lot of fun. I'm just warning you. You have to prepare yourself mentally for the fact that City. I have seen it. I have seen this movie. I have seen it. They are a nightmare, and they're getting a little bit of a grip now, and I think that's where you. I think in realistic terms too, Arsenal do. They obviously have a currently a 6-point lead, but we know that is likely to get shortened to 3 points. With City's game in hand. Arsenal still has to go to the Etihad at the end of April. That game has all of a sudden now turned into you have to get a positive result if you're Arsenal out of that game. You really can't go there and lose. A draw would be fine. Arsenal walk out of there with a draw. All right, we're square still. It's still in our control. You lose that game, all of a sudden you're level on points, and City have been in this position many times over the last few years. Not everyone in this squad has been in the title races, but a large section of them have. Pep Guardiola has managed the ends of these seasons, and I look at the way Arsenal fans have reacted on Twitter, and it is the exact same things I said. It's the exact same thing so many other Liverpool fans said. It's like, well, there's no way they're going to go here and win points, and they still have this. And brother, I'm telling you right now, if you're counting on Chelsea going to the Etihad and getting a result, it ain't happening. It's just not. It's not.
That's definitely not happening.
It's 3-0 after 40 minutes, and you're turning the TV off, and you're wondering why you watch the stupid sport to begin with. That's all. It's misery. It's misery is all that awaits you.
I will say this. Arsenal fans are kind of acting like they have a lead like Napoli in the Premier League. Like they do not have that type of comfort. City will just steamroll every team on their way to another trophy. Erling Haaland looks like a man possessed right now. Like, it's a scary thing. Odegaard has to be at Arsenal training. Just like, you guys better get on this shit, because like my boy is going to make sure that City beats us.
You don't know what I've seen. I've seen what he's capable of firsthand.
I love passing to you guys. How do you think I feel with him making runs in behind? I can do whatever I want.
I saw a really cool story where apparently Victor Osimhen, Ostergaard, who plays with him, was sort of an intermediary between Osimhen and Erling Haaland exchanging kits. Because like they were talking, like he was just talking about how they both put in a lot of work. And it's kind of funny that like, two of the top strikers in Europe this season, like have this like little Ostergaard intermediary, from Napoli, who's like sort of like building an alliance between Osimhen and Haaland. I just think it's still in Arsenal's control, obviously, right? Like it just is, but I can't stress this enough without even being like too like meme and anything like that. Like City have done this multiple times. If you think that they can't win 12 or 13 straight, you are wrong. You are very wrong. Not that they will, but do not count them out of like winning their last 9. Like honestly, I think the realistic thing is City draw like a game. I think they win 8 and draw 1 in and their fixtures too are more manageable, I would say, than Arsenal as well.
Aside from playing Arsenal and Fulham, every other game is against like a really bad team. Like Brentford at the end is like, all right, that may challenge them, but every other team
Brentford
is
could
a
have nothing to
team.
play for in the final.
Exactly,
game of
it couldn't even
too,
matter.
right? Like
this game,
it'd be very. And listen, Aston Villa last year, I was convinced that God was intervening in my behalf, and that they were 2-0 up. And that it was magic. It was meant to be. Steven Gerrard is, going to help take down Manchester City with Liverpool. And then it was crushed right in front of me. I'm just telling you, you gotta expect that things are not going to go your way.
Yeah, Arsenal has such a much like way harder schedule.
Yes.
They play Newcastle. They play Brighton. They play Chelsea, although City also has to play Chelsea. That is not ideal. Plus City in that. So they have like 4 games in a row that they are capable of dropping points. And if City just goes through this, especially if City beat Arsenal,
it does feel like
there
that
it
game
is.
is taken on. It was already going to be a hugely significant match. It does feel like that game is so much more important now. I think what's
Super
interesting is
important.
Arsenal have West Ham and Southampton in the interim. West Ham have been really inconsistent this season, and are obviously kind of floating near relegation zone. But on their day, can always frustrate teams, right? Like they have the capacity. I'd expect Arsenal to win that game. Southampton, I'm gonna just be very frank. Arsenal should absolutely be winning that game.
Yeah.
That would, but we've
100%.
seen City or the next week. Sometimes you get these games where you're looking at maybe, and
Hey,
Arsenal have not
rotate
been
the squad.
not even
Drop
just that.
points with a
I don't think
draw.
you even need to rotate the
There you
squad at
go.
this point because you don't have any other competitions that you're focused on. It's just the league now, right?
That's true. Yeah.
There's no other.
They're not
cups.
in
There's
Europa League.
right. So you don't even. I just think in terms of preparation, it might be easy to kind of. You see this in the NFL, right? Sometimes too. They call them a trap game, where it's it's easy to maybe look past this opponent. Southampton, bottom of the league. We got City next week. That's the more important game. Every game now becomes a cup final. And I wonder how Arsenal have coped with the pressure very well this season and have responded very well when they've faced adversity. They had that tough stretch in the winter and came out of that and looked very good and have been very good since then. This is really one of their few blips, in that time, at least domestically. So I expect that they'll have a good response, and there's some good fixtures in their next two that I think are going to lend themselves positively to Arsenal. But it has spiced up the title race in a very fun way, and it's going to be good, especially for the neutral as we go into the last month and a half. Crystal Palace, Dom, 5-1 over Leeds. I watched this destruction. Kind of came out of nowhere. It was all of a sudden it was 3-4-1, and I was like, I'm not sure how that happened. Olise, 3 assists in this game. Fantastic performance by him. Roy Hodgson gets back in charge of Crystal Palace. A surprising appointment, and at least to me, when it first happened, that I was wrong, I guess. I don't know. Frustrating loss for Leeds. Because obviously started this game going up 1-0, and when you're talking about the relegation fight in the Premier League and how close it all is, every game matters so much. Big win for Crystal Palace, in that regard, because I think it doesn't guarantee you anything, right? But anytime you have the chance to beat someone else that's near the bottom of the table and kind of build up a lead, they're now 6 points clear of the relegation zone. No guarantees, of course, but it does feel like Crystal Palace, might find some better footing now. For Leeds, it's I don't want to call it I don't want to say a disaster, but it's not great. It's not great to be blown out that way because under Garcia, they've had some decent results over the last few weeks, and I think there's some stuff to build on. But it doesn't feel good when you kind of get outclassed in this way, and I worry maybe about the response there because the team itself in that game really it just felt like it got way away from them mentally as well. Bournemouth, saving themselves perhaps out of the relegation spots. They beat Leicester, the Brendan Rodgerless Foxes, because he was dismissed in the last time that we talked. And Dean Martin has taken over at Leicester, obviously formerly with Aston Villa, then Norwich, was promptly fired from Norwich, and I'm not gonna lie, it just feels like a strange appointment to me. I'm not sure that invokes a lot. Leicester now in the relegation spots. That could be a huge deal. that could be a problem, a big one.
Could be. What a fall from glory, right? That's just over. How long's it been now? They won the league in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
And I mean, you had even in recent times under Brendan Rodgers, you had the FA Cup, and I think we've already kind of forgotten too. They had these late season collapses. They were a top 4 team. Under Brendan Rodgers for 2 straight seasons, and then just in the last few weeks fell out of it and fell into 5th and 6th, and there's a lot of sliding doors moments in every sport, but especially in this one where so much matters on on these fixtures, these results. You just wonder if maybe they do stay in top 4 one of those years. Maybe things get a little different. It's interesting too because obviously financially they're not in a great position. They have a high wage bill, and that's part of the reason they couldn't get a lot of transfers in this past summer. I do worry for them a little bit if they go down, what that might look like. and like their sustainability. But we'll see. There's a decent chunk of season left. You have 8 games to save yourselves, and there's only 2 points kind of separating you from being safe. So they have the opportunity still, but Bournemouth have really played themselves out of being relegated, and they've obviously been on a really good run of form. They've won 3 out of their last 5 in the league. That's the type of stuff that you need to and we see this every now and again, where like one of these teams that's kind of been languishing all year just sort of finds just enough at the end of the season. Finds enough of the right results at the right time to work their way out. So Bournemouth are looking like a potential candidate for that. And yeah, obviously we lost, we lost Brendan Rodgers, and that's I feel like he does kind of hit a wall after his 3rd or 4th season, and it just feels like that's been kind of a routine thing with him. We also lost Graham Potter, who has been replaced with Frank Lampard, because when Julian Nagelsmann is on the market, you just got to go for Frank Lampard as an interim manager. Great stuff. You love to see it. He had a very underwhelming first game against Wolves, and then lost today to Madrid. So
Gotta love the Bully era, right? The Bully era is memes.
It's I gotta tell you, on my end, really fun to watch. I love everything they're doing. I have no notes.
I enjoy seeing this implosion from Chelsea.
I love it. I
love it so much.
Let's talk a little Champions League, Dom. Let's talk about your AC Milan with a crucial 1-0 win over Napoli in the first leg of the Champions League at the San Siro in Milano. A big win. I mean, you go to the second leg now with it's a 1-goal cushion. Not great, but you've already beaten them in the league 4-0. You wonder now if maybe there's a little bit of like that mentality edge. I've also thought a lot about too. Napoli have had the title sewn up for like a month and a half now. I do think there's something to the mentality, not just of the players and of the fans as well. Not even intentionally. I think subconsciously, when every week does not have the gravity that it did before, and the kind of stakes. I just wonder if, again, not even intentionally, just your subconscious, if it just by a percentage point, your like effort level or your focus. I just wonder about that with teams sometimes, and I wonder if we're maybe seeing that with Napoli just a little touch where the big moments, they haven't had the big moments this year, right? Like they've had big wins. That Juventus win, I think, especially like in early January, is like the one that speaks to me the most. But I think in general, like the stakes have not been there every game, and I wonder if that's what you're seeing a little bit with these performances. Is that you just in the really passion of the games, it can be hard to capture it.
I think that I agree with you. I think that you can also see it with Milan, especially when it comes to the Champions League. Like, I don't think people kind of expected them to, number one, get this far, and then number 2, get this win. So like you've kind of seen it where, the Champions League comes around and there's just something about it. They have that extra drive, right? Because the stakes are high every single game, right? You can't act like any Champions League game, especially a knockout game, like the stakes aren't high in each of the 2 legs. You see it in more serious games where Milan kind of need to get points, like against Napoli when they won 4-0. When the stakes are a little bit lower, maybe there's not as much pressure when they're playing a lowly team like Empoli. You see there's trap games, right? But yeah, I definitely think that like you could see maybe a lose of focus with Napoli when the stakes aren't that high. I think that when they played Milan in the league, I think they were more focused on the Champions League tie. They wanted to see kind of what Milan was coming with and game plan against it for the Champions League. It almost worked for their favor, but yeah, there's a lot of this game is a little controversial too. There's some questionable ref calls on both ends, like the double yellow for Zambo and Gisa.
The first yellow I thought was fair. The second yellow, not as much.
A little tic-tac, right?
Yeah. It's a foul. I didn't think it was a yellow worthy. I think that was very marginal, but I mean that has huge implications because he's out for the second leg. Kim Min-jae, like we mentioned earlier, is also out for the second leg. I mean, those are big losses. They didn't have Osimhen today either. They didn't have him for the league game against Milan either. So
they're hoping that he's going to be back.
I think him not playing today was with that intention of like they'd rather like if there's like maybe he's 85% today, but there's that risk. Whereas like next week he's like, I don't know, 93%. You know what I mean? Like, and you have it at home, and like you have it sort of in your control because the tie is still very open here. It's 1-0 advantage for Milan, which is good. Like you did what you had to do. You win at home. Like that's what matters. There's still a whole nother game to play. You're halfway through the tie. But I think the obviously the dismissals will be the big part of this. I think Napoli had a lot of chances in the first 10 minutes. I think they were very unlucky to not be up 1-0. Obviously, some of that was like you said on Twitter. Mike Maignan was just fantastic today. Had some big saves. A lot of short crosses in the box and like looping headers. I don't know if that was a tactical choice or what, but Napoli had like 4 or 5 sort of flicked on headers from like 13, 14 yards that sort of looped almost into the top corner or over Maignan. I don't know if that was like planned because it happened so frequently that it just felt like there was maybe even some direction. I don't know what that was, but
we may have to go back and look at some film.
I'm telling you, I noticed on like the third or fourth one, I was like, that is like I've seen that happen way too much today for that to just be a coincidence. I think Napoli had some sort of tape on Maignan or something that you can maybe make him a little uncomfortable with, like looped balls or something like that, or maybe it was just
because I mean the game-defining save was the near post corner with the left hand off the Di Lorenzo like rocket that I believe any other goalie that's going in like. That was just an incredible save, and I think that like pushed them forward to kind of finish the game off. Do you think that either of those two missed penalties were actual penalties? The foul on Salamakers in the box, and then or I don't want to use the word foul, the tackle from Lobotka on Salamakers, and then off the corner where it looks like one of the defenders like leaves his feet and like pulls Krunic like backwards. Do you think that either of those were missed calls?
Not
clear and obvious error.
I didn't think like I thought the one tackle on who was on Krunic was probably that should probably be a penalty. We see that a lot though, where they don't get those calls, and I'm not sure why. Like and sometimes you see them and it's so obvious. I did feel like that one probably should have been a penalty. The other one, not as much, the Salamakers one, but I do think that like the dragging down, like it was like a rugby tackle almost, and to me that should be a penalty. I think players get away with those kind of things though. I think in the age of VAR though, like it's not an excuse for that anymore. Like I could see in the heat of the moment, maybe not catching it, maybe not seeing just how much they're being impeded, but when you get a second look at things, those mistakes should have been made. But yeah, like you said, the refereeing I thought was a little inconsistent all game, but it's still a tie, very much in the balance. I think Milan performed very well. They hung on when they needed to. I think Napoli would probably feel a little unlucky that they weren't 1-0 up at some point in the first half, just because they did have a lot of really good I mean, within a minute, they're very lucky to not be up a goal within the first minute of the game. Some bad decision making at the back by Milan. So, but that listen. In Champions League, you got to get it's low luck. Rub of the green.
I'm seeing it more and more on Twitter too. Teo Hernandez is becoming such a shithouser for the team. It's great. Like so many people hate Teo. Like they're like, any little bit of contact, he's on the ground milking an injury, or he's gonna chirp the player. Like I love that from him though. I love it so much. Look, Milan in the press, like they pressed pretty well today at certain times where they didn't get a goal out of some of the chances that they got, but there was a short span in the first half where they were winning the ball no more than 25 yards outside of the goal. They had Napoli pressed back. They were kind of like just trying to clear the ball out. The pressing was well done at certain times on that left side. I think that was probably by design. They wanted to overload that one side, but not commit too many people up the other side if the ball was on the right side because of, Kvaratskhelia and stuff like that. But credit to Brahim Diaz too, man. Brahim has been playing so well for Milan. He's really proven that that's his spot as like a number 10, but now he's kind of also being utilized as a number 7. kind of just taking whatever role's been given to him and really excelling at it.
Yeah, Brahim's looked good. Speaking of looking good, Inter in Portugal. Nice win over Benfica, 2-0. Feels pretty good for them coming back to Milan with a 2-0 advantage. Felt like Benfica lost their composure a little bit in this game, but when you're talking about an Italian team being guaranteed to be in the final, Inter could be progressing, Milan could be progressing. We could have Derby del Malino in the semifinal. I mean, come on, that'd be pretty nice.
It'd be cool. Absolutely. If Milan get to a tie like that in the semifinal, and they win the tie and they go to the final, I'm saying they're winning the whole thing. There's no way that you go and just, first off, you knock off the team that's running away with your league. Then you knock off your most hated rival. And then you have to play probably either Real Madrid or City. you got to show up.
I'll tell you this: if
right?
you're playing City, the whole world will be behind you. I'll tell you that much.
Jesus. Well, look,
Chelsea.
The one thing I do want to say before moving forward is, as long as I think there's a prerequisite that needs to hold true for this, and that's Milan qualify for the Champions League again next year. But this type of run that they're making in the Champions League right now, and if they get Champions League next year, that's very attractive for some players if they can afford.
I'm not laughing at anything you're saying. I've just been like, I've kind of forgotten you were wearing the glasses. Not that I forgot, but I've just kind of focused on it in the last 20 seconds. Like, he looks absolutely ridiculous.
When I started making my conspiracy theory, right? This conspiracy theory, this is my tinfoil hat right here.
Why would they do that? Why would?
It's like, I put the glasses on. Just here we go, guys.
Right, now you're just being the Naruto kid in class, and you don't want to be that.
Listen, guys, my mom told me that I can make anything possible with my mind.
How did I break out of the Matrix? Forex trading. Duh.
Listen, guys, all you need to do is get in Forex and just
He literally just hit the Guidi on the Forex. Chelsea fall to Madrid in the most predictable sequence of events ever. The Champions League is fun because you watch Real Madrid roll out Kroos, Modric, and Fede Valverde, and they just dominate the shit out of everything they play. It's just it's super cool. It's so cool how we just have this team.
From experience again, right?
It's just super cool how we have this team that just every year comes out and just everyone's like, well, they have a little off year. They haven't been as good in La Liga, and and then they're just like, we'll turn it up. Well, we'll do what we got to do. We're gonna win our 800th Champions League in the last 8 years. Don't mind us. We're just gonna casually work our way to another semifinal and another probable final. It's just what Real Madrid do. I don't know why people. The easiest money you can make, honestly, is betting on Real Madrid to just be in the semifinals at the start of every Champions League. If you have it available to you, just make that bet. So it was a tough night in Spain for Chelsea and Frank Lampard. That's all I'd like to say. But they go back to London with some hope still. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, especially in the Champions League. City just absolutely really wore down Bayern in this game. Very, very, I think, frustrating result for them in a lot of ways because they did have some control of the match. But we saw Erling Haaland especially give them a lot of fits. Apparently, Sadio Mane punched Leroy Sané after this game because he didn't like the way Leroy Sané, which is shocking to me because, I love Sadio Mane. One of my favorite players, of course. Very meaningful person to me in my life. Always kind of a little mild-mannered. Just seems like a guy that kind of just likes to do his business. It's shocking to me when I read that he punched someone. Apparently, Leroy Sané didn't like the way Sadio Mane did not like the way he was talking to him and other players on the field during the game, and took some issue with that. So,
well, I do know that he, if I'm not mistaken, right, hasn't he kind of fallen out of contention with the starting lineup?
Yeah, he's had a weird season. He's not been very good. He's had like injury problems too. You know, he had the injury that obviously kept him out of the World Cup as well, which was I think probably personally very frustrating. But yeah, he's not bedded in super well with Bayern this season.
Yeah, there's got to probably be some frustrations there that have kind of boiled over, right?
He's not looked his like mercurial self, right? Like he had like so often like was able to be a match winner at Liverpool. I also think not that he's not a great player, but I think he's the type of player that really benefited from being in a situation where there are other like guys that can sort of carry the load. Most players would, you know, and he doesn't have to be on it every single game. In Bayern, there's just a different kind of expectation. But you know, yeah, I trust that next season he'll get back. But yeah, for Bayern, it's not looking great. I'll say that for Thomas Tuchel. You know, going back to Munich, down 3 goals already to Manchester City. I gotta say, it seems like playing Erling Haaland does not look very fun. You know,
it's not. No. No, I don't think it could be.
He is just an absolute menace. I mean, just truly a terror. Goddamn, he is everything that he's been billed to be and more.
Imagine
player to watch.
Imagine Milan and City make the final of the UEFA Champions League. Just imagine that Erling Haaland making runs against Simon Kjær.
Well, you know, there's something about that, you know, Danish, Norwegian, you know, combo there. I think could work in the favor, actually. You know, I don't know.
I can't wait to see Tomori get bodied by Erling. Just
let's not get ahead of ourselves, Dom. Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still got a whole nother leg in both these to go. There's, I'm sure, some more Real Madrid dark magic to come. Let's not get too carried away just yet. As far as this weekend goes, Manchester City play Leicester. That is your title kind of update in the Premier League, and West Ham versus Arsenal as well. So those are 2 games, obviously, to keep in mind of. No, like, you know, big 6 kind of matchups in either league this weekend. For the most part, it's just a lot of sort of middling stuff. On Monday, you have Fiorentina versus Atalanta. That's probably like the biggest game of the weekend in Italy. But, you know, you have some important games, obviously, you know, if you're looking at the top 6 races and things like that. You got Lazio and Spezia on Friday, Bologna, Milan on Saturday. Bologna, a little bit to play for, chasing some European spots. You know,
I think that's one of the biggest games of the weekend.
Inter and Monza as well, similarly kind of balanced. So, you know, and Roma, Udinese, Juventus, Sassuolo. Nice Sunday spread for you there. Some games to keep it locked in on. Dom, anything to say before we get out of here?
That's all I need.
Forza Milan. You love to hear it. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about the Champions League. We'll be talking about Europa League, too. You know, that's back tomorrow. Keep your eyes peeled on that. Always some good stuff. Europa Conference League, even. You know, get crazy. Get wild with it. It's going to be nice out, at least where we live. And then we'll be talking about maybe another shift in the title race. Who knows? And we'll be looking at whatever Italian team in the top 6 decided to wet their bed this weekend. Until then, we'll talk to you then.